Hey everybody, Mitch Tram here. Today I want to talk about this Lew's Speed Spool Mark Rose Signature Series Baitcasting reel. This reel is about a $50 to $60 reel. I think it's about $55. So it's not a super expensive reel, but it's not, the cheapest reel out there. The reel itself is a one-piece graphite frame, so it is made out of graphite. It has an anodized aluminum spool that is hollow, so it has the little holes in it. The spool tensioning knob is also anodized aluminum. It has 5 bearings, so it's got 4 bearings like in the spool area, I believe, and then it's got the one anti-reverse. Anti-reverse works really well, and it is a very smooth reel. Can't complain about the smoothness, can't complain about the anti-reverse not kicking in. It has the magnetic brake or magnetic control system, I think is what they call. And the line capacity is 120 yards of 12. Its gear ratio is 7:1:1. And overall, it's a nice looking reel. You can see it says Lew's right there, and then on the top it says Mark Rose Signature Series, and it says Speed Spool right there. You can see the gear ratio as well right there, 7:1:1. It also says that it has the brass gears right here, so the internal gears in here are brass, so it's got fairly decent quality components. Stainless steel ball bearings, brass gears. Some guys, they like to see how fast the spool spins. I don't know how much that really matters, if I'm being honest with you, but I'll do that for you guys. So if I go ahead and push the release down there and spin it with my finger, it is full of line right now, and I do have the spool tensioner pretty much completely loose, so you can see it goes back and forth right there, so there's really nothing holding the bearings from spinning. So they don't spin super great. They're probably not super high-end bearings. They are stainless steel, they are smooth, but some reels, you do that and that spool will just spin forever. This one does not. The tensioning knob here is also nice and tight, and what I mean by that is it takes a little bit of force to turn it, so it doesn't loosen on its own, right? So that feels good. The drag itself, it does not click, neither does the spool tensioner, but it feels nice as you tighten it down. And the reel has a decent amount of drag. I want to say it has like 10 or 12 pounds of drag. I honestly am not completely sure, but it doesn't have a ton of drag. Like, you see some of these reels these days that have 20 pounds of drag, 17 pounds of drag. It doesn't. It has somewhere between 8 and 12 pounds of drag, which is more than enough, to pull a fish out, especially you're talking about using this to catch bass with. You don't really need a ton of drag, and you want to play them and not break your line. You're going to be using lighter line probably if you're using fluoro or mono. Now, I have tried mono on this reel. I've done the extra smooth casting by Trilene in 10 pound, and right now it has 8 pound Sunline fluorocarbon on it. I've had 30 pound braid on it, and all 3 of those lines backlash more on this reel than any other reel I have. So take that for what it's worth. I've been throwing Baitcasters for a long time, and I don't typically throw a lot of backlashes, but with this reel I throw more backlashes than any other reel, unless I crank that magnetic brake like way down, or way up like to 10. If I keep it at 4 or 5 where I normally keep a magnetic brake, then if I'm not really using my manual brake here, I get backlashes. If I'm not paying attention, I get backlashes on this reel. So you really have to know what you're doing, in my opinion, to throw this reel without getting backlashes. So I would say that is the downside to it. Casting distance on this reel is fair. It's not super long. Like if I think about my 13 fishing inception or my concepts, those reels cast a mile. This one does not, but it casts well enough. I mean, for a $50 reel, it casts fine. I would say if you are just starting out and learning to use a baitcaster, this is probably not the reel for you. There are other reels out there that are going to be better for you and not be as frustrating. The side panel does come off of this reel, so if you loosen right here, it's got a little knob or a little screw, then the side panel flips up and it comes off. And in there, you can see the magnetic brake, and it works like any other magnetic brake. If I turn the knob all the way to 0, those magnets will go all the way down in there. If I turn it to 10, those magnets come all the way out. So it works, like I said, just like any other magnetic brake. You also can see one of the spool bearings in there, right there. And here's that spool, and there's the other bearing on the spool. You also can see the brass gear in there. Let me turn it there. You can kind of see that brass gear in there, or where the spool connects to the brass gear, the pinion gear. And then right under here, you can see the worm. Right there. And you can see the line guide. So overall, I would say that this is not a bad reel by any stretch of the imagination, but for 60 bucks, there's probably better reels out there. It does feel nice in the hand. It palms really well, like most Lew's reels do. Fits really nicely in the hand. Let me show you that real quick, just because that's one of the things I like about this reel. And I have much more expensive reels, and I use this reel all the time. This is 711, and it's one of the reels that I use when I'm flinging a buzzbait or a spinnerbait. I really like it. But you see, it fits nicely. It palms really nicely. Just the right size, feels really good from a palming standpoint. Reeling is smooth. The handles here are rubber, and they are the Lew's style, you know, kind of their signature style paddle here. And the handle itself is aluminum. So like I said, not a bad reel. And you know, for a Lew's reel for 50 bucks, 55 bucks, I can't say a whole lot of bad things about it, but I can say if you're not used to throwing a baitcaster, in my opinion, this is one of the more difficult baitcasters to throw. And there likely are reels in the same price range that are easier to throw and have more controls. And you know, some of them that come to mind are like the Cast King reels. You can get those reels less expensive, and a lot of those have both a magnetic and a centrifugal brake on it. So when you're first starting out, you can set both of those brakes kind of heavy and almost not get backlashes, right? Because you know, backlashes happen at 2 times. They happen when the lure is first flying off, right? When it's first flying off, it's pulling line out. And at that point, your magnetic brake or your centrifugal brake, or if you have both magnetic and centrifugal brake, they control the spool spin and keep the backlash from happening during the beginning of the cast. At the end of the cast, as the bait hits the water, this right here is what keeps the backlash from happening, and that is your spool tensioner. So you know, when you set your spool tensioner, you push your release right here, and you want your bait to fall and hit the ground without having any overrun or any backlash happen. So that's how you set that. So that's at the end of the cast, right? When that bait hits the water. And then of course you've got this brake right here to help manage and control it all the way through. And you know, the better you are with your thumb, the easier it is to cast any bait caster, and especially when you're not tightening your tensioning down on your spool tensioning all the way, and you're not setting your brakes up all the way. So you know, the better you get with your brake, the less you rely on these other brakes. So once again, good reel if you know how to throw a bait caster. But if you don't know how to throw a bait caster very well, I would not recommend this as the reel you start out with. And once again, it does not cast as far as some of the other reels out there, but it doesn't cost as much either. So keep that in mind. Anyway, this is my thoughts on the Lew's Mark Rose Signature Series Speed Spool. The model number is the MR15H. So it has some quality parts in it. Not a bad reel. Hey guys, that's all for today. If you like my videos, subscribe to my channel, like my videos, ask me some questions. I'll be happy to answer anything about this reel. I've had this reel at least a year and a half, probably closer to 2 years. So I've used it quite a bit, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. You guys take it easy.